Chapter 25. Only one head to a customer. This happened in the Safkar range of the Madhya Pradesh, also in the central provinces of India. The dak bungalow stood on the summit of a slight hill in rolling country, beautiful country, whose crisp greens and yellows and reds were reminiscent of Connecticut in the fall, or of a bright autumn day in the Carolinas. You expect to hear quail calling as they mustered scattered ranks at sunset. Instead, there was the raucous meow of peacocks, the croaks of ravens, the belling of a sambar stag startled by a tiger, or the sharp, biting yap of the barking deer. In the dak bungalow, which the government kindly leases to tiger hunters who rent shooting blocks, there was a kerosene-operated refrigerator and a whole sideboard of tinned delicacies and condiments. In the main room, guns were stacked aimlessly in a corner. A 470, a 308 with a scope, shotguns, a scope 220. Every time some Indian visitor would come to call, and the good Lord knows enough curious locals dropped in, somebody would pick up a gun and snap it at the floor or at somebody else's foot. The camp was equipped with the camp managers and secretaries and clerks and varieties of nondescripts who just came to rubberneck. They all were fascinated powerfully by the guns. The guns were not mine, but rented and fitted tolerably well. I had already had some experience with them, especially with the 308, a really dandy little middle weapon. Dandy, that is, except I couldn't hit anything with it. This is not unusual in my case, except that once in a while the law of averages says that you're supposed to hit something if you blow off enough powder, and I was ringing up exactly nothing with the scoped weapons, including the 220. I asked the head shikari, "Anybody sight these scopes in? Graticules all checked?" and got a blank look. "You know," I said, "scopes have to be checked. Atmospheric pressure, jogging around a jeep, too many rounds of ammunition fired, that sort of thing. They get out of alignment." Blank look, "Never heard of it. A scope is a scope is a scope. Tied it to the weapon with a bit of string and the scope will kill, just as in Kenya, where the natives all believe largely that the noise kills." "We'll stick up a target," I said, "and sight them in." Wistful shake of a head at European whim, but up went the target 100 paces off on a tree as big as Boabab. From a steady rest on the cushioned hood of a jeep, I hauled down on the target and took a piece off the side of the tree, repeated the shot, and duplicated the hit. The gun grouped beautifully, if you liked it a foot high and 2 feet wide. I tried the 220 and missed the tree a couple of times. I unscrewed the sighting apparatus and looked at the downs and ups and the graticules, discovered that if you wanted to shoot around corners, these were the most murderous weapons I ever saw. But unfortunately, if you aimed at something close hand, you were likely to kill the Shakiri's cousin in downtown Gondia. Evidently, nobody had reshaped the sights since the scopes had been sewn on, possibly on the other side of an ocean voyage. I made the few adjustments on the screws, fired a few more sighting shots, and when the guns were on, I set the sight solidly by wrapping the pan with the butt end of a 470 bullet. This appeared to be magic, especially after I downed a peacock at a couple of hundred yards. This had nothing to do with mechanics, of course. Magic. The aboriginal black Gons and Bagis didn't believe in guns anyhow. They were very heavy on rocks and trees and iron adzes and phallic symbols, but guns, no. "Oh my God, old man," said I. "You told me one day I would go to shoot tigers, but you never said it would be like this." This was the Shakiri's venerable 5.77, which was wired together with baling wire. That business of the sighting finished, we shot some chital and sambar and pigs and one tiger. The guns were always carefully stacked in the corner of the room. One day I took a look at them and could barely fetch a mite of daylight through the muzzle. "For the love of God and Buddha and any pagan gods we have handy," I hollered, "don't nobody ever clean no bloody rifles around here?" "Oh yes, Sahib, we are cleaning immediately," and off went the artillery. To the laundry, I suppose, because the caste system would certainly demand that a Dahobi, professional washerman, have charge of the cleaning detail. Back came the guns, cleaned cleaned to be stacked in the corner. I took them out of the corner and laid them on the table. I went to have a nap and read some enchanting 50-year-old prose from Backwoods magazine. When I got up, there were the guns stacked in the corner again. About the time I was smithing my brow, I spied a hawk circling over the trees in front of the bungalow, and suddenly it lit. Without taking my eyes off the hawk, I snatched the .220 from the nest in the corner and stalked as best I could, using trees for cover, towards the hawk. Something of my African chum, Harry Shelby, may have rubbed off because I made it too easy shooting range without alerting the hawk. As is customary, I started to snick the safety and discovered the safety done been snicked. I drew back the bolt to charge the magazine, and bless Pappy, I had heard a tiny chink as a live round was ejected from the chamber. I didn't even bother to shoot at the hawk. I was that rattled. I turned and dashed for the Dak bungalow. Every gun in the cluster in the corner was loaded. Every rifle had a live round in the chamber. Every safety was off. The double .470 had 2 large cordite charged soft points in its barrels. I let out a scream that the old man must certainly have heard upstairs or downstairs, wherever he be. I do not believe in raising hell except when it's necessary, but the idea that anybody in the hunting business could be such a bloody fool as to stack charged weapons in a corner for any idiot to point at his foot and snap boom boom made me mad. I went white and shaky. It was an affront to decency, as if a maiden of impeccable virtue had suddenly been accosted as an easy lady. Grandpa was all I could think of to say, between curses in all the 6 languages I swear in. And who was cursing louder than me was my wife, who had been so painstakingly trained in safety with firearms that she was almost afraid to shoot when the critical moment finally came. I never quite forgave the Indians after that one. I went all the way back to Carolina the first day of the gun and remembered. The old man and I were out to shoot us a quail, my first. I was 8 years old. In a minute, the old man said, as the dogs fanned out. I aim to let you use this thing the best way you can. Your mother thinks I'm a damned old idiot to give a shirt-tail boy a gun that's just about as tall as the boy is. I told her I'd be personally responsible for you and the gun and the way you use it. I told her that any time a boy is ready to learn about guns is the time he's ready, no matter how young he is. And you can't start too young to learn how to be careful. What you got in your hands is a dangerous weapon. It can kill you or kill me or kill a dog. You always got to remember that when a gun is loaded, it makes a potential killer out of the man that's handling it. Don't you ever forget it. I never did forget it. During the course of my apprenticeship, the old man ate me out. He put me through a course of fence climbing that would make the old Marine boot training look easy, and he was as mean as a drill sergeant. Whoa, he'd say, like he was calling a scatterbrained dog that had just run through a covey of quail. Now ain't you silly sight stuck on a barbed wire fence with a gun waving around in the breeze, with one foot in the air and the other on a piece of limber wire? Or, now what kind of hunter have I got here? His gun propped against a tree for any fool dog to run against and explode in his face? Or what kind of a damn fool hunter stacks his gun in a corner when he comes in from hunting, so some young'un can take it to play with and blast a hole in his mama? And I would say to the old man, but Grandpa, it ain't loaded. Who says it ain't loaded? The old man was scornful. He walked over to the gun, took it out on the back porch and pulled. Bam, bam. Not loaded, huh? What was it? Was that mice? Of course, the old monster had framed me again and stuck a couple of shells in when I wasn't looking, which was his way of making a moral lesson. He had done it before, the first day of my new gun, when he palmed a shell into the spout and told me to dry fire to improve my aim, after I missed my first quail with both barrels. I cut down on a pine cone and blam! And blim! The gun went off and near scared me to pieces. Then he took my gun away from me, and killed a quail with it just to teach me a lesson. I was so mad at him I would have liked to palm a shell in and shoot him, except for the fact that I loved him and knew instinctively that he had a point. In later days, my wife confessed to a desire to shoot me in the pants for the same reason. But in the early preteens, the old man made me uncouple the gun every time we moved from one hunting sector to another in the car, and the first thing I did when we come in, dead beat in the evening, was to take down the piece, clean it, and stow it in its case. The old man, smiling smugly over his first snort of the day, would say, Take a mighty clever young'un or a mighty pert dog to undo that case, snap the gun together, load it, and then shoot you accidentally with it. It may sound old matey, all this caution, but I confess to a breach of it. I've fixed my safety catches on my big guns, the double rifles that is, so they won't slide back onto safe when the gun is broken, because I don't want to worry about forgetting to slip the automatic safety catch back on if I'm reloading again in a hurry to keep something large and ugly from stepping on me. For the same reason, I don't use automatic ejectors on a double express rifle. It's just one more thing that might jam when a jam is not precisely what you crave at the moment. But one day I had to change crews, and I forgot to tell the new gun bearer about this peculiarity. We were hot after elephant, and I had told the boy to load the banduki, and he did. And when we came up to the jumbo, he handed me the weapon. I automatically tried to push the safety forward, and it seemed stuck, so I jerked it back and couldn't fire because now it was unsafe. In a moment of panic that lasted 1,000 light years and took a sixth of a second, I fought mechanics. What happened? He had broken the gun to load it, and the safety went forward and stayed forward on fire, as per arrangement. I had hustled 5 miles through the brush with that loaded cannon pointing at my head over his shoulder, and all he had to do was step in a peg hole and karam! Richest widow in Palmos, Spain. So the next day I took the whole safety apparatus completely off. Now, when that lovely little Jeffrey is loaded, it shoots, and it is in my hands, and I am in front of the bearer. It's a far cry from the old man and BBs shot in the eye and people blowing off their heads crossing fences, but shooting some grouse just the other day in Scotland, there was such a fanfaronade of pellets falling in the butts that I got down in the bottom of mine and gave up sport for the moment. The week before, one of the more tempestuous French clients had loosed a load at a grouse crossing the nearest butt, and one pellet nicked a gilly less than a quarter-inch below his eye. Quarter-inch higher, being one-eyed, is less fun than being two-eyed. That's why I got so tarnal mad in India. I guessed if we'd have had the old man for a shikiri, I bet you there would have been a lot of sore tails in Safkar camp, because the Indians have a chastising instrument called a lati, and for the old man could lay on a lati as well as he could furnish a common American stave. I'd feel a touch less afraid of the guns than I was scared of the tigers. Come to think of it, I didn't waste much time being afraid of the tigers. I was too busy keeping an eye on my friends and employees.